Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me outside the Beltway. Once again, this is Alan Lyon, and I am your host on Outside the Beltway Radio. It's been a month almost since I've been on my podcast, and I apologize for that. I just hadn't really had a lot of time. But it's also been a month since I've talked about Russia also, and that's one of the topics I want to get today. I'm going to actually talk about Russia, the Bureau of Land Management, who is had the situation down in Nevada with Cliven Bundy, and we'll talk a little bit about his comments too, which is also a good segue to Donald Sterling and the Clippers CEO and owner. And I have some comments to make about him that probably a lot of you guys out there might disagree with. But it's just my personal opinion. This is America. We all have our own opinions, and we could all put it out there in our own venues. I choose a podcast. Anyway, so we're going to start with Russia. So since I've talked to you guys last, basically we've sanctioned about another 10 more people. So that makes it like under 20 people sanctioned in all of Russia to, that's our dagger to stick in the side of Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, he's got 40,000 troops sitting on the eastern border of Ukraine. He has paramilitary people, or militia, whatever you want to call them, pro-Russian forces inside of Ukraine, creating unrest. So he could set up the situation to where he can come in as the good guy. Oh, I'm just going to try and create peace here. Of course, creating peace, when your forces come in, all the paramilitary and militia pro-Russian forces are going to stand down. Obviously. Now they're talking about full annexation of the Ukraine. I heard something about that today. This is all predictable. All predictable. Anybody who follows geopolitics, foreign policy of the United States, or even just politics in general would know, the correct. Okay, we have history here. We have Ronald Reagan, who single-handedly took down the Soviet Empire because he outspent them in defense spending. He created a Star Wars program, which to this day I'm not even sure was actually happening, but the Russians thought it was happening, and thought we were going to dump tons of money into the space program so we could laser nuclear bombs out of the air from space. And if we could do that, just think of what we could do to the Russians. We could send nukes over there, and then they can't do anything to defend themselves, and we could defend ourselves with a laser-guided satellite. Anyhow, we outspent the Russians. They were in Afghanistan for 10-year war, never won. We were supplying the Mujahideen with weapons. We were the CIA was fully entrenched in Afghanistan against the Russians, and they couldn't spend any more money. They went broke, and the Soviet Union fell apart. We're talking about Georgia, Ukraine, all the Baltic states. We're talking about a lot of landmass. So now Russia's, I'm hearing stuff about annexing all of Ukraine. Excuse me. What's next? Georgia, Lithuania. I mean, all of those countries are half the size of Ukraine combined almost. Ukraine is the biggest country over there. We let them have Ukraine without having any kind of repercussions. I know this country and the people of this country are warred out, but you know what? Out of all the wars we fought, we were fighting a guerrilla enemy. We're fighting, you know, people that could be your next door neighbor. In Afghanistan, Iraq, you know, anybody could be a terrorist. But as far as Russia goes, that's a state with a full military and a nuclear arsenal. Now, I'm just a firm believer that they would never use nukes. And I'm also a firm believer that we would never actually go to war with Russia. So what you have to do is take preventative measures. We sent 600 troops over to, let's see, Hungary, I believe. Oh, Poland, Lithuania, and Georgia, maybe, actually. 600 total, so 150 troops, or 200 one spot, 200 another spot, 200 another spot, whatever. 600 troops on the ground. We should be sending the Ukrainians, before any of this happens, we should have already sent them an arsenal of weapons. An arsenal, and some covert military operations as far as training. They need to have a foot to stand on, you know? We need to take preventative military measures. What I mean by that is make it, put the onus on the Russians. So we put our assets right there next to them, and we're just there. But if they want to advance, they're advancing on us. Then the onus is on Russia. Let's see if Putin has balls enough to do that. Anyway, that's my take on Russia today. I have no faith in this government, or this administration, I should say, in foreign policy. I don't know who he listens to, but anybody who doesn't toe the party line, who's a realist, can on its face see that Barack Obama, is weak is a good word to use. I mean, that's putting it lightly for him. He's beyond weak. So the next subject I want to talk about, or the topic, is the Bureau of Land Management and the Cliven Bundy situation, and actually a couple situations in Texas. The Cliven Bundy situation, I guess in '94 is when the Bureau of Land Management came in and claimed the lands to be public in Nevada. And that's when they wanted to start charging him federal grazing fees. He's went to court twice over it and lost twice. Okay, so in that respect, you know, he's breaking the law. Now, the federal government owns more than 80% of the state of Nevada, as far as just claiming it. Now, everybody knows that there's military bases in Nevada for you know, covert kind of stuff, so because they want it in the middle of the desert where nobody goes, right? But what we're talking about, parts of over 80% of Nevada. So we've got the Reno, Nevada area, then we get the Las Vegas, Nevada area, and then pretty much everything else is owned by the government of Nevada. I understand what Cliven's saying about state sovereignty. I mean, he may be on the radical end of it, you know, coming out and saying calling black people Negroes, and I mean, that's just flat out ridiculous. We're in 2014. This guy's stuck in a time warp. But the principle of what he's saying, I agree with wholeheartedly. How does the federal government own more than 80% of the state of Nevada, the land? There is no state of Nevada, technically. Really. There's a couple counties with a couple cities that really are separate. And to be honest with you, where Cliven Davis was, he's right outside. He's actually in Clark County, I believe. He's right outside Las Vegas. So it's right there. Now, his comments are just flat out ignorant. And it takes away some of the credibility of the argument to be had about the federal government claiming land. Now, in Texas, I don't know, I mean, because Cliven Bundy's situation has been all over the news. Now, the Texas situations have not. The federal government is trying to claim land from citizens that's private. Now, the Cliven Bundy situation, the land wasn't private. It was just land out there not owned by anybody. The government claimed it, right? Now, this land that the BLM is trying to take in Texas is private property. Now, when the government comes and starts trying to take people's private property, and property meaning in the true sense of property, their land, we've got an issue here. Okay, because they're not trying to take, evidently, one of these gentlemen have 90,000 acres. It's broken apart in different parts of the states, or into different parts of the state, excuse me. But they're trying to claim huge chunks of his private property. We're not talking about, like, we need this little portion, maybe like, a couple acres here, or 10 acres. They're trying to take hundreds of acres from this gentleman. Eminent domain. Now, that, for me, that raises all kinds of government issues. In my lifetime, pretty much since 2009, since Barack Obama's taken over, I've had fear in my heart, honest fear in my heart, and I'm an even keel guy, right down the road kind of guy. But I've had fear in my heart that this country is going to be turned upside down. It's going to be nothing like I remember as a child. I'm a lucky person. I was born in the late 70s, mid to late 70s, and I got to live through the 80s. And the 80s was unbelievable for this country. Ronald Reagan was amazing. He made everybody feel good about the country. Now, this administration makes everybody feel like a victim. Not like you want to get out there and earn it yourself. It makes you feel like the government owes you something, or the man is keeping you down. It's ridiculous. And my fear is that we're going to get to a point of no return. This younger generation has the wrong idea of government and what the government should be, how the government should work for the people. So it really scares me for the next generation, and for my generation when I'm old. I fear that I'm going to have to work till I'm 80 if I live that long. Knock on wood. And that's why I'm doing this, getting my voice out, because I feel like it's necessary, and I feel like more people need to speak up, and instead of letting, because us as Americans, we just go about our daily business. People that I know, friends that I have, people that aren't involved in politics, have no interest in politics at all, they go about their everyday lives and have no say, and have no idea of what's going on. So essentially, you're giving up your power as a citizen to hold our politicians responsible, left or right. And they are running rampant. They are spending millions and millions and even billions of dollars on ridiculous stuff in the government, frivolous stuff. One of these episodes, I'll do some research. I will look up a whole bunch of programs and stuff that our federal government spends money on, and I would love to hear your comments and questions that you might have about it. Now, finally, I want to talk about the LA Clippers situation and Donald Sterling. Now, I told you at the top of the show that some of you people, a lot of you people out there that are going to be listening to my show will probably not agree with me. Now, let me lay it out to you as far as what I think. Now, is Donald Sterling a racist? Yes. Okay. In today's terms, he is a racist. Okay. And were his comments on that recording inappropriate? Absolutely. Now, here's where I might veer from everybody else, or most people, I should say, is that although he may have those beliefs, how tragic and how horrid they are, he kept those beliefs private for the most part. His public persona, he gave money to minority charities all across the board. Yes, he's had history with being a slumlord and having kind of a blasé attitude about that, and some of the comments that he made. So honestly, it's really not a secret that he is racist. But the comments that he made were in a private setting. Okay. So I take that into account. And plus, I'm the kind of person who takes everybody with a grain of salt. This guy's an 80-year-old gentleman. He is from the era of segregation. And probably grew up in a racist family. Okay? That doesn't make it right, but that makes him who he is. Now, everybody evolves as a person differently. The way he evolved was, and I'm just trying to get inside of his head, right, psychologically. The way he evolved was, he had his white wife, and then he had his half black, half Mexican girlfriend. He's, in his mind, he's paying these black players millions of dollars, so he thinks he's helping them. He's giving money to the NAACP and other minority charities, so he's helping them there. So in his mind, he's thinking that, he's evolving as a person. He has nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with those people. I just don't want to associate with those people. That's his mentality, right? There's nothing wrong with them. Just like he was telling his girlfriend who was taping him, I don't care if you hang out with them all day or sleep with them or whatever. Just don't do it in public. So obviously, Donald Sterling's answering to friends, other gentlemen of his time period, probably of his ilk, have a lot of money. And he's worried about what his peers think. That's where I think that comes from. Now, like I said at the top of this segment, is he a racist? Yes, of course he is. By today's standards, absolutely. And this may sound a little hypocritical, but I'm sick and tired of the news covering the situation. It seems to me like any kind of situation with race involved is just top of the news for 3 weeks straight, in the news cycle for 3 weeks straight. There is so many more important things happening in this country and in the world right now. Really. It's just pathetic. All right, guys. Well, it's been a while. That will be the show for today. Future shows, I just want to let everybody know, future shows I'm going to try and get a little more production involved here and do segments, maybe stretch the show out to an hour. I know I only do about 20 minutes, 25 minutes now, but I'm going to try and work it out to where I'm going to do a couple segments and maybe work it up to an hour so I can really get some in-depth talking and explanation of my opinions. And eventually I'm going to try and go live and take some phone calls. So if you watch this and you like what you see, go to our Facebook page, like us. That's facebook.com/Outside the Beltway Radio. You could tweet me or follow me at Outside the Beltway Radio, or OTB Radio, I'm sorry. And A-Lion at Outside the Beltway Radio for email. I'd love to hear from any of you guys. Any comments or questions you might have. All right. I hope everybody has a great afternoon. And go San Jose Sharks. See ya.